Hey everybody, it's Leslie Dale with the TFP, and
I'm Ella Smith.
I'm Zach Peterson.
Okay, so we're doing an update on the Woodmore bus crash. We're going to start with the criminal investigation court side of things, and you just said to me, "Oh, that hearing, it was interesting." What do you mean by that?
It was intriguing to watch the police kind of go into the way they reconstructed the scene.
Yeah, I was reading your update, which is on our website. So tell us about that, how they determined how much the driver was speeding, and you
Sure.
go ahead.
So they sent it sounds like a few officers from the Chattanooga Police Department's traffic division, went to the scene the day it happened. They're out there trying to more or less piece together the evidence that is there and figure out what was going on. So a large part of that involved analyzing the tire marks and the specific marks that a vehicle makes. Today, during the hearing, they kind of started to go into what they call ECM, which is engine, like something module.
Some kind of computer in the engine that measures RPM and speed and things like that. I'm sure every car has it.
Basically strip data, but it wasn't as relevant in this situation. What was big for the police was the tire marks. So they're looking at that. They're more or less using all the math and scientific techniques that they've gathered over the years to measure the angles, to see how long they lasted, where did they stop off.
And there was something interesting too, when a vehicle is moving sideways, the tire marks are a little different than when it's moving frontways too, and they can actually tell that. I believe that was one of your tweets. I was following you on that.
Yeah, he mentioned the term side slipping.
Side slipping, okay.
And it creates like a unique mark when it does that. And gosh, I wish I knew the specifics, but they somehow are able to glean.
I know, it's
kind
crazy
of
how they can figure that out.
The intriguing thing, the officer, the one who testified the longest, for sure there were two, but his name was Joe Warren, and he had mentioned that when he got on scene, he was kind of able to deduce right away, through his 20 years of experience, that this involved a lot of some speeding. Through their calculations, he said at a minimum, his estimate was the bus was traveling 48. He also had suggested that another set of tracks said that it may be going about 50 to 52. It's a residential zone.
And that's a pretty tight range. They're able to narrow it down to between 48 to 52. That's pretty good.
For sure.
So about 20 minimum over the speed limit.
Yeah, that was the general testimony today. Was that they were kind of putting that value at about 20 miles over the speed limit, saying there was a good amount of signage in the area that said it was 30 miles an hour.
And he had also driven this route before, so one would think.
No, but we also determined that he was not on the school route.
Oh, he was off the route.
He was off route.
Okay, ignore what I just said.
That was in an earlier piece that I believe Kendi and Tyler, our reporters, were working on, that he was not on the bus route. So you can go back and look at that.
I should have done that
Tell people
before I
where
opened my mouth.
Tell people where they can go.
You can go to timesfreepress.com/Woodmore. That's Woodmore, and we have a collection of all of our stories starting from the day this incident occurred through to today, really, with Zach's latest piece that's up on timesfreepress.com right now.
Let's also talk about video footage. I remember the day after the crash, the investigators came in from the NTSB, National Transportation Safety Board, and what they do is determine what happened. It takes, can take a week, 2 weeks, whatever. They estimated 7 to 10 days, and they immediately said that there were cameras on the bus, but they were damaged, and they were trying to see what was on the video. And apparently now, in the hearing this morning, this officer you're mentioning, a police officer, is referring to video footage. What did that show? What were they able to see?
Well, there was kind of some interesting cross-examination with the video footage. They mentioned there are 3 cameras, kind of cover front to back of the bus, from the back to the front, and then I think around the general driver's area. Some of the discussion about the footage, they were talking about how at one point, and they didn't go very deeply into this, and they didn't comment afterwards, so it's kind of tricky to figure out what's going on here, but at one point the video footage showed him with a cell phone. There was really no proof that he was texting and driving with the cell phone. His attorney said that it was out while the bus was stationary, and then the officer mentioned that the phone had kind of gone out of view. It had gone down a little bit. hard to draw like a straight line
Yeah.
there between having a phone and then texting and driving.
Right.
That was the big
And
big
that's
argument
they may
about.
keep exploring that throughout the trial. I would assume that'll be one of the things
I could
they'll
imagine
look
that
at
being-
and say, where was the phone? Was he using it? Was he not using it? Did it matter? And then the defense will argue what they've started to argue today, I'm sure. And we'll
Another
learn more
interesting
about that.
point was the defense attorney, Amanda Dunn. She was talking about how if you look at the back of the bus at certain points with the footage, that it was very sunny behind the bus, very bright. The officer then mentioned that she was looking at a different clip of the footage and how obviously Tally Road is very windy and the position of the sun will change at various points along the route. So it was really intriguing just to watch them go back and forth in their questioning. But honestly, I think the biggest conclusive takeaway is what they said about the speed so far. That's the most evidence-backed
So at least
line of thinking.
20 miles per hour over.
That's what they're putting it at. Yeah.
Okay.
And I haven't been out to the location. What is it? If you were going 50, was this was some sort of turn or an intersection, or what was with the speed? Because what exactly occurred? I mean, did they think he was trying to turn or somehow go
Well-
around a curve
Well, he hit, a tree. So.
sideways? So he was
Yeah.
obviously in some sort of
Well, they're saying that, I think the thing here, the police are saying that he's going pretty fast. There's kind of the hill there. I think at sunset is the crossroad around that area.
coming down a hill.
All right, then you got to go back up at some point. You've got some curves in the road, and then at some point there, he couldn't safely navigate it because of the speed. So that's where he overcorrected, started to
the bus
lose
sideways.
control. And
So this was just a natural curvature of the road where this occurred. This wasn't necessarily an intersection or something like that.
right.
Okay, makes sense.
Okay, yeah, they say again that when they responded, police responded to Tally Road around.
Well,
three-
around whenever the accident was fresh.
Right,
Yeah.
so then they respond to that area. The tire marks that they looked at immediately when they got there say they determined the driver, Walker, was speeding, lost control, overcorrected, and eventually smashing into a mailbox, utility pole, and tree.
There was another interesting thing from your tweets that they were arguing about the time of day when they were investigating some of this stuff, because it's the time of year, it gets dark very early. They were out there around 3:30, you said, and then of course it gets dark around 5. And the defense raised this issue, right?
She did. She mentioned that it's getting dark. They're doing their investigation. Multiple agencies around, families everywhere. Just the crime scene secure. It was an interesting point. The
Yeah.
officer counted that they'd started their work in the daylight. I have no idea whether darkness affects your ability to study tire marks.
It was just an interesting point. It's getting dark. You're studying dark marks on a dark asphalt road. I mean, it was interesting that they thought of that as something to bring up. I thought, but this will go on to.
I'm sure they'll look into whether or not they took pictures or video when they immediately responded to the scene of the crash. Police have to document the way that they investigate these kind of things.
So from a legal perspective, where are we in the? Is it fair to call it a trial? We're past the hearing. Where are we in the
We're
whole?
still pre-trial.
We're still pre-trial. So in the sequence of events, what kind of walk us through what's going to happen with this with the prosecution of this man?
Sure. So you get arrested, you get charged, they set your bond, and you go into sessions court for your first hearing. One of your kind of rights down there, a typical legal mechanism they use is what happened today, the preliminary hearing. That's where you'll walk in, and a judge is going to decide whether there is enough probable cause that it happened, and that
They should kind of continue on with
Sorry,
the. Yeah, it's distracting.
Sorry.
She always does that.
I'm sorry, I'm looking at your comments when I do this.
She doesn't know how to work her phone.
No, my phone doesn't work correctly, but
It's an Apple
there
phone.
is a question when you're ready for it from someone.
sure. So anyway,
So preliminary, they're trying to determine whether or not to proceed. If the state has enough evidence to proceed with the full trial, is what you were saying.
right, and the judge said there was. So
Okay.
basically, what she does is she sends the charges up to the grand jury. She also has the option, this judge Lila Statham, to go over the bond. So the defense right there could have put on some proof that they wanted to try and get the bond lowered. The state also could have been like, we would like the bond raised higher.
Yeah.
No changes to it. He remains in custody. when all these charges go to the grand jury, a group of people from Hamilton County will get impaneled. They'll hear the facts of the case again so far. They'll decide whether to return an indictment, which is basically just a formal documentation or recognition that you face these charges criminally in now Hamilton County Criminal Court. Kind of the joke here is that a ham sandwich could get indicted. Certainly you could get your cases dismissed in the grand jury, but if you look at the true bill reports that come back,
Doesn't often happen.
it's rare, exactly. So I think the chances are good that you could be indicted and that you could proceed to criminal court from here. But
And that's when there'll be a formal case like you see on TV where the prosecution presents evidence, the defense cross-examines, and
sure,
there are
what
opening and
will
closing arguments.
more likely happen is they'll walk in and continue to figure out what they have. I mean, there's
Yeah.
still a lot of info out there. That was Amanda Dunn's point today, is we don't have the NTSB report, the full one. That's supposed to take a long time to be finished.
We don't know when that's expected.
I heard at one point 18 months out, like the full
So this
official
could be
final report.
It could be years. I mean, before but that comes out, and
Well,
then
most cases do take years, yeah.
I doubt they'll go to trial without that report, since the NTSB is out there gathering info that could be crucial in the case. So you're looking at, a couple of years really till we get any resolution on the fate of this man who was driving this bus.
Yeah,
Likely, not for sure. They could. Any chance of a settlement in this case? Has anybody talked about that? Just pleading guilty and moving on.
That's always an option. I haven't heard any talk about it.
Okay.
But yeah, once you get up there, you'll start going over sort of the facts of the case, seeing what you got, what you need. Maybe the defense would like certain pieces of information suppressed if there is going to be a trial and move toward a trial date. Sometimes what happens, and it depends on the courtroom, but you'll walk into a particular court and the judge will say, all right, let's set a court date and move toward that. If we have to push it out a few months because of some outstanding issues, okay, but let's set a date.
It's a
and
goal everybody can get behind, and
Right.
everything, discovery, whatever, depositions move toward that.
Exactly.
Okay, so we have some questions. Debbie Medlock said, your article mentioned there was no apparent braking before the crash. Has it been determined the brakes were functioning correctly? Question mark.
They didn't mention anything about functioning brakes. They just said that he didn't brake. There didn't seem to be any evidence out there that he braked. One thing Amanda Dunn brought up was, at one point he's kind of getting to the grass. Were there brake marks there? Were there any unique kind of features of the tire marks there that suggested braking? And the police again said no.
And we haven't, heard his testimony, obviously, what he says happened. That is another question some people have asked me, was how did they charge him without determining if the bus was or was not malfunctioning, which I don't know the answer to. Also, Caitlin Clark said, because this made national news, how do you think this will affect jury choice? We talked about that. Or
That's a good question.
yeah, what do you see
Can this
happening with
proceed
jury
in Hamilton
choice?
County, or will it have to be, tried somewhere else, like some of these cases that get a lot of public exposure?
The only people I remember when this happened, you were out, but the only people I knew who didn't know about this were people who had been out of the country. We're like, oh, this is the first I've heard. I'm like, really? And they're like, oh, I was out of the country.
I knew about it, and I was having a baby.
Yeah. Thank you. Communicating with us during that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then we have another comment. I'm going to say this name wrong. I'm sorry. Sameh, Sameh. Michel. I hate mispronouncing
Fantastic
names.
name, though.
I'm sorry. Yes. This road is dangerous. It is curving and also kind of hilly. That area is curvy and hilly, but, there's a lot of areas like that. So whatever, the investigation and police determine or what.
The S curves in Hickson, there were a lot of
There have been a lot of
collisions
accidents
there,
there,
and so
speeding.
they installed those cameras. Everybody hates the cameras, but and I actually got caught by one time. I went to traffic court, and I don't even think I was driving my car. I think my wife was driving my car.
Oh,
so that's why I
Joy,
went.
Joy actually just joined the chat.
Oh, hey. And so I was like, why are you giving me a ticket? And the judge basically said, he said, look, it may not seem fair, but these traffic cameras, we believe, have saved a lot of lives on those S curves in Hickson, so you're paying the ticket. And that was okay. It wasn't that much. But, it is that's an interesting solution that everybody hates it, but it does kind of slow traffic down a little bit when you see those giant cameras and warning signs every 100 yards or so.
Okay. Well, well, more to come, like you said. So
Yeah, this isn't going away. It's going to be a long road,
Yep,
potentially.
road. No pun intended.
Oh, sorry, I
right?
did not mean that pun.
Okay, so let's talk about what the community is doing. The community has really put forth a lot of effort since the afternoon this happened. There are a few events this weekend that we know about. Saturday, a dance competition to honor 2 of the little girls killed. Ziana Harris danced with Ladies of Excellence, while her good friend Zoe Nash danced with another local team, Royal Envy. So the Ladies of Excellence dance team is holding this memorial competition at the Rossville Athletic Center, 2 p.m. Saturday. You can go on our website to get all the information about this. I'm certainly sure that's going to be an emotional time.
So 2 p.m. Saturday, Rossville Athletic Center, dance competition to honor some of the victims of the crash. And then we've got other events as well. There's one on
At Woodmore Elementary from 12 to 4, where they're doing a bunch of like family kid activities. It sounds like there. So hopefully be inside. So chilly.
It's chilly, yeah.
Yeah. And then there's also some jazz going on that's
Sunday
in Chattanooga now. So you can go
talked about that
to our
yesterday a little
website
bit.
for all of that information, all the details, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot more that continues to happen, because we've seen, if we haven't seen anything, we've seen whenever there's a real tragedy here in Chattanooga, like the Fallen Five, that the community really, really, really comes forward. That was evident in all the spots I visited the day after the crash. Like, blood assurance was so packed. They stayed open way past their hours, and just the scene and the church where they held a vigil was just packed with support. So,
And we should mention, we've talked about the criminal case a little bit. We've talked about some of the memorials. There were also another number of civil cases pending. People are suing driver, the school, a lot of everybody's. And there are now 6 of those lawsuits, I believe. Is that
Yes, we
correct?
reported on 6 so far.
We've reported on 6. Could be more. Who knows? But those will be. That's a big job for you. You've got 7 legal proceedings at this moment, just on this one incident that you're kind of keeping track of. But Zach will keep us updated on those. Are those all pretty similar in terms of the claims that they're making and
Generally, 5 so far were very similar because it was for kids who had survived, but obviously undergone
Injured.
serious, horrible, life-changing injuries that will most certainly impact the way that they can live their life, make a living, earn money, the consortium of life, period.
horrible injuries.
The most recent one was for a wrongful death claim. That was for a child who had died in the wreck. That's the first of that kind. They are all gonna probably take a little bit of time too, but reviewing a lot of the lawsuits so far that have been filed against Durham since we contracted with them, I took a look at all of them since 2010, and a lot of them end in settlements. The company does agree, usually confidentially, to
No admission of wrongdoing, kind of a thing.
I don't know about that,
Yeah.
but it definitely, like, they don't often release the amount, but they'll say, here's a lump sum, we're going to dismiss the case without prejudice, and typically they'll cover some kind of medical expenses. So,
And sometimes, and I don't know, you've looked more into this in Durham particularly, but sometimes when there are a large number of lawsuits filed that are very similar in scope, those will be combined into one big lawsuit. Sometimes a judge will just say, we don't need to clog up the criminal or the civil system with 12 different lawsuits that all say the same thing. Let's try them all at once. If the attorneys and everybody can get together on that.
right.
I have no idea whether that'll happen in this case, but that's something that sometimes happens. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, we don't really have we don't have a benchmark totally for that here yet, because in the ones I looked at, they were often more separate cases. There was one kind of string of about 5 lawsuits that involved the same crash. None of the kids had died in that one, but serious injuries still. So in that, they all seem to be separate. I didn't get an indication if
They
they
were never
grouped them,
combined.
but we've never had a bus crash, to my knowledge, where 37 kids were involved.
37.
And I want to say all but a few were taken to the hospital.
I
So
think that's true.
though it's certainly it's kind of unprecedented. Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll have a lot more on these cases as
Are
they
any
develop.
of the kids still in the hospital, or are there two still in the hospital?
Last we reported there were 2, right?
This morning, an officer testified 2 were still in the hospital.
Yeah. Yeah. So best
Seeing the
wishes to them.
pictures of these kids, so sad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we've done some profiles on the kids. You can go again, timespress.com/Woodmore if you want to learn more about the victims, how you can help. Head over there, and we've done quite a bit of work outlining that for you.
Our crime reporter, Shelley Bradbury, has done some really touching portraits, and you should definitely check them out because the victims often get lost in these kind of things.
Yeah. So sad. All right. Well, thanks for taking the time. I know you have to get back to update some more of these stories.
All
So,
the fun stuff. Thanks for having me.
okay. Well, I hope you warm up this weekend, and we'll
I see Zach
yeah.
wearing a jacket indoors. We're right by the windows, and they don't do a lot to block the cold. So
Also
Yeah.
from Florida, so
yes,
Yeah, I know. Me too. This is
supposed to get down to
awful.
20 tonight. Sorry.
Ooh.
Yeah, sorry to be the bearer of bad news, but you're going to keep that jacket on probably for a while.
yeah.
So if you want to take a much warmer turn, we did a story in a sauna, an infrared sauna, earlier. So you can go on our Facebook page for that. It looks like you're laying in a coffin and you're heating. Well, I was heating myself up. So it's a cool experience. Not cool. It's warm, but you get it. So go on our Facebook page for that. And then we have big shopping news that we're going to be talking about at 11. So yeah, that's all I'm going to give you.
All right.